Hello everyone, my name is Sneha. Today we will be analyzing architecture scene in Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Pride and Prejudice is a classic novel by Jane Austen which deals with the themes of love, marriage, social conventions, and morality in Georgian England. As an architecture student and a film connoisseur, I'm always intrigued by the architecture that we see in films and the impact they have in any story and how significant they are in establishing the plot for us. The structures seen in the story are not just the architectural settings, but a representation of the characters who inhabit them, their ideals, virtues, and social rank. The cultural and political context of the time when the book first came out was very different from today's age. Georgian England was patriarchal, aristocratic, followed the rules of the social hierarchy based on ranks, which we can see upon deeper analysis of our settings. All the buildings, structures, houses, and even the landscapes can be seen as the characters of their own. Joe Wright's 2005 film adaptation of Pride and Prejudice is a successful interpretation because its architecture and cinematic choices establish the settings as a significant tool in the story and translate the story's underlying themes and social commentaries. The film makes the settings tangible for us to analyze and interpret them. Hence, different stills from the film are used to describe the elements of architecture and their understanding. The most significant structures that play a role in the story are Longbourn, which is the Bennet family's house, um, Netherfield Park, which is the residence of Mr. Bingley, Lady Catherine's estate in Rosings, Mr. Darcy's estate in Pemberley, and we also get to analyze some unmentioned structures that we see throughout the story that depict the prevailing style of architecture outside and show the influence and style of architecture in the Georgian era. This is the same thing. Um, so the first structure that we come upon is the Bennet family house in Longbourn. It's our protagonist Elizabeth Bennet's house. It's a typical Georgian countryside house. It's symmetrical to view, as you can see. It has gable roof, which are these kinds of roof that you see in the picture. A central entrance, as you can see. It's all the elements that you see in the picture. Like if you split the picture from the half, you see everything's mirrored. So that was one of the most significant characteristics of Georgian era's architecture. These kinds of houses were owned by educated upper class members of the society, which were respected in the society but were still lower in the social rank compared to the aristocrats we are gonna talk about further upon. Um, See, these are more stills of the same house. It was not a mansion, but it was still considered modern and well built. It's stable, durable. It has plenty of space outside, as we can see in the front, at the back, everywhere. Just tables, barns, servant quarters, which means they were able to afford servants throughout the year. We can see they're comfortable in living. There's a water body back at the back of the house. The front is covered with porch and brick pillars. The pillars were also one of those significant elements of the Georgian era. These are more stills from the same house. We focus on the interiors in this slide. As you can see, it's messy, it's lived in. This is how we know that architecture is supposed to represent the characters who inhabit them, because the chaos that we see in the interiors can also be seen in the lives of these people, which is why we see like the messiness of the family. We can infer that the messiness in the family comes from the place that they live in. We can see romantic pattern in the curtains. We see well it's kept up, but it's not neat and completely sleek. Um, they have painted walls. It's adorned with simple paintings, we see in this picture here. There are spaces like drawing room, library, bedrooms, parlor, dining room, and kitchen. The second structure we see in the story is residence of Mr. Bingley in Netherfield Park. This is symmetrical to view as well. We'll see it in another slide, but as you can just see from this picture. It's very grand, it's sophisticated, it's elegant. It also has symmetrical design. It has big pillars compared to the first structure. It has balanced wings on the both sides, large windows you see everywhere, and formal elements like columns and a pediment. Same thing, columns, pediment. The brick and stone used in the place provides a durable appearance and is used for stability. We see the use of brick and stone in most of the Georgian architecture because any massive Georgian architecture, to be honest, they had a driveway for carriages, which means they were able to host parties for other families, were very, very wealthy, and it was just well kept up. We see it's neater, it's cleaner, it's more elegant than the first structure that we saw. So we can say this whoever inhabits this structure is going to be richer than the first one. The third structure we see is Lady Catherine's estate in Rosings. This is very grand. This is very grand compared to the first two structures. It's imposing in that matter. It's a country house inspired by elements of Greek and Roman architecture. I know we're still talking about Georgian architecture, but the aristocrats had so much influence and power in that era that they could hire architects from other regions, which is why they have like a hybrid style of architecture. But it was still the Georgian era of architecture, so you still see the large windows, the symmetry, the wings, the pillars, the usual stuff that we've been seeing in other structures as well. It was very ornamented, you can see, detailed, yes, ornamented. I just said that coins and cornices. These are the elements that I'm talking about. Even though the country houses before were grand, they didn't have like this opulent amount of ornamentation in them. So you can see they are very, very wealthy. They are one of the highest ranking aristocrats we will probably see in the whole story. They have formal gardens, they have landscape lawns. It was, yeah. In the interior visuals that we see big paintings covering the whole walls. They were largely decorated, very, very opulent. They had a grand dining table. They had servants, way more servants than we ever saw in the previous settings. So we can tell, even the furniture you see is very, very ornamented and detailed. Um, this is one of the most significant structures of our entire story. This is Mr. Darcy's estate in Pemberley. Mr. Darcy is one of our main protagonists. You can see a large body of water, lawn surrounding it. It's symmetrical as well. This signifies Mr. Darcy's wealth, power, and taste. It had a central entrance with side wings, uses stone and brick as its building material, big columns ornamented bar in the railings. Again, large windows for enough sunlight in the house. Extensive grounds, landscape gardens. You could even tell they were picturesque. Um, Overly maintained lawns, ornamented fountains, big bodies of water, woodland nearby. For the interior, we see the same, not the same, but the similar amount of big paintings that we saw in the previous structure. They had in intricate sculptures, massive ceiling arcs. Again, Greek and Roman style, even though it was a Georgian era, because they could afford architects and from other regions than wherever they were. Marble checkered floors, very detailed. Big art and paintings hung all over the structures with ornamental frames. You can see in this one. Um, Lampstands right here, detailed. Fireplace right here, detailed. Sofas, detailed. Entrances of the rooms, very detailed. This is a scene where these characters walk up to the stairs, and you can see how accessorized this whole entrance is with all the carvings and stuff. Um, these this amount of wealth shows the intricacy and ornamentation that the higher rank of social class people in the higher rank of the social class of people mainly focused on. These are some unmentioned structures that, like, we don't know the names of them. They don't. None of our main characters inhabit them, but they still appear, and we still see the same elements that we saw in previous slides of Georgian era. Spacious ballrooms for hosting parties, porticos and pediments, which are these elements of architecture, picturesque gardens, again, formal and balanced style that has been established throughout the slides, symmetrical, again, use of brick. We see that throughout the Georgian era, and we see that these settings are used accordingly to the public-private use, where we can see ballrooms like this were private for most of the time, but public during any event. These were public spaces just made for public use, so market, I am guessing this is the market, with the architecture I can see and the use I can feel. This is obviously private, house of someone. This was one of the, I'm guessing it's like a chapel or something, but it still follows the same balanced symmetrical style with the use of brick, pediments, and columns, as we've been seeing in um, all other structures throughout the story. Um, these architectural settings matter because Georgian England was patriarchal and aristocratic, as I've mentioned before. The time that Austen was born, our writer, the book was written and published, was still considered a transitional period because some of the major events that took place, like the start of the Industrial Revolution, the transition in the style of art and architecture from the Enlightenment to the Romantic, the emergence of feminism and abolitionism, and everything else was going on at the same time. And we can see these moments had an impact on the public, as we can see in our story and the characters in the book. The transition to the romantic patterns can be seen in our wallpapers, as I showed in one of the first structures that we saw, curtains and various interiors. Women's women were Women were expected to know household activities like needlework, dancing, playing instruments, and were expected to be well mannered, soft spoken, and ready to raise a family. The main purpose of this women was to marry, settle down, and make babies before they were too old, and they were expected to be dependent on their spouses for social and financial security. Women had no formal role in the society if they did not marry. The architecture seen in the movie represents the social hierarchy and norms of the period. The more lavish someone's residence is, the higher they are in the social rank scale, and the more money they have. The aristocracy prevalent in the society at the time was also seen in the architecture, where the lords, lay nobles, and the landowners owned grand country houses and estates. The Industrial Revolution led to rapid urbanization and the development of townhouses and public areas in the urban neighborhood that featured the classic Georgian elements like form, balance, symmetry, and other things. The Georgian architects were inspired by Palladio. He's Italian Italian Renaissance architect for elements like proportion and symmetry. He was one of the first pioneers of those elements in architecture, and the Georgian era of architecture was very influential and sophisticated. The structures featured in this the structures featured the same elements, although they differed in scale. We can see the elements of Georgian era in art and architecture to this day. The influence of this style was seen in furniture, the outfits of people, and landscapes. People in society were heavily based in wealth, power, and social rank. As described above, this difference was seen in architecture too and reflected a period of growth and prosperity. By understanding the language of architecture, we gain a comprehension of society's social critique and emotional core. The film's visuality successfully makes Austen's themes visible and deep in meaning. That was all. I hope you know more about architecture than you did before starting this video. I hope you're more interested in ancient architectural eras, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you, everyone.